And as I said, I love Solana. I want the whole world on Solana. But the truth is the whole world is not yet on Solana. And so JubeNet is our play to actually go and expand across all of DeFi more broadly. In the same way that Jupiter as an aggregator brought all assets, all liquidity, and all users together on Solana, JubeNet is going to do the same thing for all of crypto.
Welcome back to our second episode of Off the Block, your go-to podcast where we break down the biggest shifts in crypto, its intersection with macro, TradFi, and beyond, one block at a time. I'm Max, part of the research team here at 21 Shares, one of the world-leading providers of crypto investment products, namely through regulated vehicles such as ETPs and ETFs. Here at 21 Shares, we aim to bridge the gap between traditional finance and the exciting world of digital assets. I'm once again joined by my co-host Darius, and even more excitedly joined by Kash, who actually works as a cat herder at Jupiter. Can you explain a little bit more about what you do at Jupiter, so that people actually understand what you do on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, Max. I think cat herder is probably the most precise title I could ask for. That is truly what I do. Uh, when I do more traditional media, I oftentimes go by chief operating officer. But basically, what I'm trying to do is take all the chaos that's like inherent to any high growth startup, and then that chaos that gets amplified once you are in a high growth industry like crypto, and try to start to manage it. So I lead obviously our operations team. I also lead some product stuff, do a lot of strategy, investor relations, and some other areas. Basically trying to take all the incredible work that the Jupiter team is doing and put it into a format where people can understand it, people get excited, and it can accelerate even faster.
Sounds amazing. You've been so kind enough to join us all the way from Singapore, from Token 2049. So we appreciate your time. And part of the reason is, of course, to get to know a little bit about Jupiter, about yourself. But for those of you who follow 21 Shares very closely, you'll be aware that we recently as well launched a
That's right.
Jupiter ETP just a few days ago. So we're very excited about that launch. And we're very excited for, more traditional investors to get exposure, get access to one of the most exciting protocols within the Solana ecosystem, which is already exciting as it is. So with that, I think to break the ice a little bit, we can get started with a couple of rapid fire questions. Kash hasn't seen these questions before, but I've no doubt he'll be able to give us all the right answers.
Let's
So
find
with
out.
that said, yeah, exactly. With that said, I'll give it over to Darius to do it a quick rapid fire.
Perfect. Thank you, Max. And Cash, the first question I have for you is, how did you first get into crypto?
I don't know if it'll be as a rapid fire on that one. The truth is, the first time I ever experienced crypto was with the Bitcoin faucets way back in like, I don't know, 2008, 2009, which is, if people know, they used to like give Bitcoin away for free just so people would try it out. And so I got a bunch of Bitcoin through that, which I promptly lost, obviously. So I didn't really get like super involved in the space until maybe 2016 when I read the Ethereum white paper and saw it talking about DAOs and got very excited from there. Got some ETH, immediately got wrecked in the DAO hack that the OGs will remember. And it's been a up and down journey since then, I would say.
And what was your first crypto interaction? So beyond buying and selling, so what was like the first app thing you actually did on chain?
The first real thing probably would have been trying to participate in the DAO governance forum. So, for a little bit of history context, like the first ever DAO, this decentralized autonomous organization, was built on Ethereum as an investment vehicle where people would be able to pool all of their ETH and then through this kind of decentralized governance procedure, be able to invest it in projects that deserved it. And that was the first time that I really got excited about crypto in like a practical sense of this ability to kind of distribute power and bring more people into the political process, in that case of capital allocation, but this kind of fundamentally governance-based process. And that was the first time that I really got excited about what the tech could hold.
And maybe also interesting fun fact, that was also the reason why we got an Ethereum fork. So Ethereum,
That's right.
I believe it was Ethereum Classic and Ethereum main chain. Yeah,
Yeah, that's actually, it was that. So obviously, get the hack was not great, but it was that moment where I got this airdrop of Ethereum Classic that I was like, what is this magical world where money just shows up in your accounts at random times? And that's really where the addiction kind of went full force, and I just went further and further down the rabbit hole.
very cool. Maybe obvious question, maybe not. Let's see what your answer is. What's your favorite crypto asset, token, and why?
Well, I'm not in the business of giving financial advice. Obviously, Jupe is my favorite, but I think that I'm pretty strongly biased. So my second favorite would be JLP, which is the Jupiter
Yeah.
Liquidity Provider token. It's an index fund, basically, of Bitcoin, Solana, and Ethereum, and it earns real yield from Jupiter trading fees. I think at the time of this recording, it's like 30% APY. And so you get diversified exposure and you get this real yield coming in. I think it is like the single best token in all of crypto outside of Jupe, obviously.
Also, maybe kind of obvious question or answer from you. Let's see. Solana or Ethereum?
That one should be obvious. Yeah, it's Solana for sure. I'm all in on Solana. I actually feel very silly oftentimes at these kind of conferences because people will reference projects outside the ecosystem, and I just have never heard of them. I'm all Solana all the time. Not a maxi necessarily. Like I do think it's important that there are other networks that have kind of different roles and fulfill different needs. But for me, as like a business and revenue oriented guy, Solana is the place to be.
And we're going to talk about this later in the pod too, about the Solana ecosystem and Solana DeFi. And last question for me. Besides Jupiter, what's a project you're currently watching in 2025?
Oh, I mean, there's a bunch. They're all in Solana DeFi, I should say. Uh, Let me say I'm really interested actually by Oro Gold. They just launched a few days ago, and maybe that's why it's top of mind as well. They're doing tokenized gold on Solana that is also yield bearing. And I love that kind of product where it is kind of what you might get in the traditional world, just more accessible, easier to move around, easier to move in and out of, and so on. And then some extra utility that is very hard for regular people like me to get access to in the real world. So yeah, I think it does like 3 or 4% yield on top of the gold that's in there.
Actually, cool that you mentioned it because I believe I met the founder at Token in Dubai earlier this year. So
Oh,
maybe I should
Usman.
look
Yeah.
into them again. Yes, exactly. Usman. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a super team angel collective that invested together in
Yeah.
that. So yeah, a lot of friends are in that one.
Oh, very cool. And with this, over to you, Max.
Yeah, no, I'm struck. I'm a big fan of gold. Now, if you can earn yield on it, I'll definitely be checking that out. Thanks, Cash. Beyond that, what's one crypto trend that you're currently following that's top of mind for you at the moment?
Uh, I hope this isn't too technical to talk about, but it's a perhaps the most underappreciated trend that's happening right now in crypto, and that is the emergence of these proprietary AMMs. To kind of zoom all the way out on it, like market microstructure, how trades are actually fulfilled on Solana is a critical thing, right? This is how we move people from centralized exchanges on chain. You need to offer better prices, less slippage, more predictability, et cetera. And these prop AMMs or dark AMMs that they're sometimes called a little bit more nefarious sounding, uh, they are bringing actively managed liquidity to the on-chain and trading environment and producing incredibly tight uh, bids and asks and really being able to ensure that there's more liquidity coming on chain. So this is an advancement that's really only happening on Solana, and it's creating a trading environment that is every bit as good as centralized exchanges for major assets. And so I'm really watching that to see what other assets are going to get supported there and how much of the volumes are going to continue to move from centralized exchanges to decentralized exchanges. 2 or 3 years ago, that was maybe 11% of all trading volume was happening on chain. Today, it's about 32% of all trading volume. This time next year, hopefully it's above 50 and we continue to make more progress.
With you on that, I also believe that most of trading will be occurring on blockchain rails slowly but surely, and the more advancements there are, that the faster we'll get there.
Mhm.
Beyond that, what's one crypto fact or maybe a stat that recently surprised you, that caught you off guard, perhaps?
I think it's probably the idea that stable coins are settling more volume on chain right now in Q2 than Visa and MasterCard put together settle. I am old enough and have been in crypto long enough to remember where if you could have said that and people would laugh at you, as recently as like 3 or 4 years ago, right?
Hmm.
The stablecoin supply last cycle, I think really topped out around 30 billion. And if I'm not mistaken, right now we're around 300 billion. So we've seen an order of magnitude growth. And the Department of Treasury themselves, and Scott Bessent, think that's going to go to about 2 trillion in the next few years. So there's another 10x to happen. But seeing
Yeah.
the level of adoption of stablecoins has really been mind blowing. The pace at which it has happened has just been astonishing.
Yeah, we've also followed that stat quite closely as we use it quite a lot, as you can imagine, within our research decks. And it was a
Mm,
story about how it's going to catch up, and now it's a story about how it's actually topping those volumes. So
that's right.
we're happy to see that trend as well. What's your favorite crypto use case? Maybe something a little bit more niche beyond DeFi, I imagine would be top of your mind, but what would
It
you
is. Yeah.
say beyond that?
I have this line that I think crypto is really good for three things. It has product market fit for payments, for profits, and for Ponzi's. I'm not so interested in Ponzi's, so I kind of skip over that part of crypto, though it definitely exists. And I think that I don't trade as much. I'm not very good at trading, quite honestly. So I don't do as much on the profit side. So it's really payments that I think is the most exciting. I don't know how niche it is necessarily, but there's been a major wave of innovation in the last like 6 to 12 months that allows you to actually spend your crypto in the real world, which, the previous 8 years I was never able to do. So now with Apple Pay and Google Pay, I can not only, pay for things, but if I'm settling, a casual poker night with friends, I can send them crypto as well. And I don't have to worry about them saying like, what am I going to do with this? How do I actually use it? So that kind of connection between the on-chain rails and the traditional finance rails, I think is an emerging use case that is going to really accelerate adoption going forward.
Thanks. Agreed as well. And then what's the biggest misconception you would say that people do have still about DeFi?
I would say that it's all based on what are famously called Ponzi-nomics,
Hmm.
Ponzi-based economics. I think now, especially on Solana, there's real economic value being created and real economic activity. And as a result, you have yield being generated that is based in, actual economics, not people kind of inventing and handing out their own free money or their free tokens. And I don't think people realize just how competitive rates are on chain right now, particularly, for stable coins. You can borrow them oftentimes substantially cheaper than you might be able to borrow them from a traditional bank. And so seeing people, including companies like either executing carry trades if they're more sophisticated, or just, basic people who need a loan to fund their own lifestyle for whatever reason or invest in their business can now actually come on chain and get loans that size with relatively predictable rates that are substantially better than they get anywhere else.
Yeah, sounds good. Sounds good. Let's hope more and more people make the move on chain. And then lastly, what's one word, and I think this is going to be a difficult one for you, but what's one word to describe the Solana ecosystem? Just one. You've got to use
Oh,
just one.
this is my Achilles heel, as I use too many words for everything. I would say there's one word to describe the Solana ecosystem. I'd say pragmatic. I can explain if there's additional time. If I'm allowed extra
That's not the
words,
word I expected. So
yeah.
I'd love for you to go on and explain
Yeah,
for sure.
I think, I initially got into crypto for idealistic reasons as well, as I think, most people ended up doing. But I do think over the course of crypto's development, it's actually been trapped at times by this dogmatism and this ideological purity test that is constantly applied to people and projects that are in the space. And I think what's unique about Solana is that there are no sacred cows. It is not a place where, either from the network perspective itself or from a project perspective or a business perspective, really the goal is how do we create real value for real people in the real world? And given that that's the kind of primary focus, a lot of decisions based on network architecture are different there. Decisions that builders will make in terms of how primitives are designed are different there. And certainly how businesses are designed is very different there relative to, Ethereum or some of these other more, let's say, academically minded ecosystems. And there's of course nothing wrong with being,
Yeah,
philosophy first, but I think for Solana, the idea is let's be pragmatic first and create a lot of value.
yeah, makes sense. I think you guys are within the ecosystem a little bit more laser focused on execution and then rather
Mhm.
getting things done. And then not that the means justify the ends, but sometimes getting to the ends is important to try to question the means as well, is more of the kind of approach that I see from a philosophical point of view within the Solana ecosystem. So actually now having heard your answer makes a lot of sense to us as well.
Yeah.
So now that's it for the rapid fires. We'll be heading it now into going a little bit deeper into Jupiter, into
Mhm.
spotlighting what it's all about. I know that you guys have moved from, just a DEX aggregator, which I like to call a bit the Waze or the Google Maps of transacting, right? You get the fastest, cheapest, and most efficient route to place a transaction on chain, but now you're building more of what you guys label as a super app.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I say, I've been kind of like actively following crypto since 2016, but it wasn't until 2021 that I kind of joined the crypto workforce. And as much as I would love for there to be like a very philosophical reason of why I chose Solana over Ethereum, at the time I had a very good friend, Akshay BD, who's the reason that I work in crypto. He and I were poker buddies, and at the time I was thinking about getting a job at Standard Chartered as an entrepreneur in residence. And I was sharing it with him. I was like, "What do you think of the offer?" This, that, the other thing, and he kind of grabbed me by the shoulders, and he had some very choice words for me, should I say. And I was like, hey, why don't we do something together instead? And he had already started to work a little bit in the Solana ecosystem and helping to onboard builders. And so that was kind of like my entry point. It was where the opportunity was. And that actually informed a lot of my future work as well. So the first thing I did was this thing called Super Team. Super Team, which still exists, helps to build the talent layer for Solana, right? Onboarding builders and contributors across the world.
Where did Jupiter start? Where are we now? Because this has been quite some evolution on there. But just simply speaking, what is Jupiter? You call yourself the super app of DeFi. It's one of the leading Solana DeFi projects. In your words, what's Jupiter?
Yes, I think you can think about it at kind of three levels of sophistication. So the most beginner kind of way that I would describe it to, a cousin who couldn't care less about crypto is what we're trying to build is the Google of finance, right? It's fundamentally a tech company that is here to help organize the world's assets and opportunities and make them universally accessible to anyone, anywhere. So you would search Google for websites, you search Jupiter for tokens is a simple parallel. If you go up the next step up the ladder, I would say we are the DeFi super app. So in order to know that, you have to know what decentralized finance is and why it matters. You also have to know what super apps are, so it's a little bit more complicated. But there, simply put, I would say we started as a DEX aggregator, the best place to trade spot, best price, best execution every single time. And from that very dominant position, we actually expanded horizontally and vertically into a number of other business lines. And so now I believe we have 10 revenue generating products across trading, yield generation, and some other things as well. And then at the kind of most sophisticated level, the way I like to think about Jupiter is really all of DeFi in one place. We have multiple primitives. So we run the third biggest Solana validator, for example. So we have push the network forward. We have a lending protocol that allows us to generate yield. We have the largest perps product on Solana that allows you to trade with leverage, largest spot. And so that's really where we've come to today is this very thorough, comprehensive product suite where there's a bunch of cross-product synergy, where the different products reinforce each other and create more value per user than anywhere else. So the Jupiter token is what we might call a brand coin. It gives you certain benefits within the ecosystem. So for example, it does have governance power built into it. So it's a governance token kind of at a fundamental level. But at a level above that, it also kind of represents the brand in people's minds. So as they are getting more involved in DeFi, they'll want exposure to that brand coin in the same way that, Pepsi has brand as one of the items on their balance sheet as an intangible asset. The Jupiter token is kind of a representation of that. So if you think about Jupiter as this kind of Google of finance, right? Up until today, it has been limited to just Solana. And as I said, I love Solana. I want the whole world on Solana, but the truth is the whole world is not yet on Solana. And so JupeNet is our play to actually go and expand across all of DeFi more broadly. In the same way that Jupiter as an aggregator brought all assets, all liquidity, and all users together on Solana, JupeNet is going to do the same thing for all of crypto. So in technical terms, we call it an omni-chain liquidity hub. It's built on top of an evolved virtual machine called the Jupe VM that has a bunch of bells and whistles that we can talk about if you're interested. But broadly, it's a major technological breakthrough that allows people to come and trade any asset on any chain. This for a long time has been the largest problem in crypto. This idea of cross-chain fragmentation, where am I using Ethereum? Am I using Solana? Am I using Base or Arbitrum or who's it? Nobody cares. No one wants to know how any of that stuff works, right? They just want access to the assets and the opportunities to live within those chains. And so JupeNet is going to be this omni-chain liquidity hub that allows you to access tokens on any chain at any time with very deep liquidity.
If I may, because that's something that's continuously continued to bother me within crypto, right? The idea of composability, the idea of interoperability. And I'm someone who's happy to still take on that challenge and still, face those little annoyances. But for the everyday user, that's not something that they're going to be happy with. They want their experience on chain to be easier than what they already experience in Web 2, right? So in that sense, like we need to be able to build things that are actually an improvement upon what we have in the existing space. So with that in mind, like that's why JupeNet kind of calls out to me, or that's why we're interested in talking about this as well. But do you guys see this more as a strategy or I guess as a tactic to elevate Jupiter and therefore move towards other chains because you see the value in being on other chains, or do you see this as a brand kind of way to get more people to know about Jupiter and therefore bringing them back towards Jupiter's main home base, which is Solana?
Yeah, I would say we're somewhat unique in crypto. This kind of goes back to the pragmatist point, where at Jupiter, the number one priority has never actually been the underlying tech. As cool it is as it is, and it is very cool, right? The number one priority is always how do we solve user problems? How do we build something that people actually want to use? And so that was really the inspiration behind JupeNet, right? Is knowing that both Solana traders and kind of users of crypto broadly were faced with the same problem, where if they wanted access to multiple places at once, they could either a download 20 different wallets, learn how bridges work, get gas tokens everywhere. It's an absolute nightmare. Or B, they can go to Binance and then go to Coinbase, right? And those are really the two options. And honestly, as people who believe in the value of decentralization and privacy, neither of those are very good options, right? So JupeNet is really like this decentralized version of Coinbase or this decentralized version of Binance that preserves self-custody, it preserves your privacy, it preserves your autonomy, while still giving you that same product level experience. So you don't have to
within
create
the broader
wallets and remember
Solana
seed phrases
ecosystem.
and all this kind of stuff. The real question is, how do we make crypto so simple that it feels like your traditional bank account, your checking account, your savings account, and so forth? How do we put things into a paradigm that people are already familiar with? Only when we do that, I think, can we go
Hmm.
from the few million users that DeFi has today to the billions of users that it's going to have in the near future. Jupiter is right now the leading Solana DeFi protocol. We're number one on most of the metrics that matter, and certainly we have the most diversified business and the largest kind of footprint on Solana. Uh, my hope is that Solana is going to continue to scale as rapidly as it has been scaling. So stablecoins is just one measure of it, but we just hit $15 billion in stablecoins on Solana very recently. A year ago, that number was substantially less. I don't even know what it was, maybe like 3 or 4 billion or something like that. So as more people come to Solana, I think Jupiter's role gets bigger and bigger. There's one interesting kind of way to think about Jupiter that is oftentimes underappreciated. And that is, yes, we are the largest product on Solana, but we're also the largest platform. And I mean that in the kind of Microsoft sense of a platform being where other people build on top of you and earn more revenue than you do as a result. And to date, Jupiter has more than 300 partner integrations. Partners have earned more than $750 million using Jupiter APIs. And so I think our role as Solana continues to grow is, yes, to lead on the product front, to continue to build more things that people want, but also to make the developer experience and tapping into the rich liquidity and user base of Solana even easier for other folks as they come on, whether that's TradFi players like Coinbase, Robinhood, and whoever else, or kind of new projects that come in from Indonesia to Nigeria to anywhere else.
Thanks a lot for that, Kash. One analogy that I really like, and I have two that do the same job. It's either the Windows, which made all of using computers a lot easier than having Linux, and so Windows was really the mover, the catalyst to get people to actually use computers, use laptops, and it really expanded the reach of these computers. And maybe we can see or think of Jupiter as a similar way. In
Mhm.
that you're building a lot of different toolings within the hood of DeFi, and you're as a result for the everyday user, which is a very big benefit, as I said, because for people like you and I, we're happy to go through the edge cases and the little bit more problematic things within crypto. I think that's something that's quite interesting to talk about, given that we also have the rise of AI, of course. So just before we wrap up onto the deeper part of breaking down Jupiter, and we'll do a little bit of a high level view into the Solana ecosystem, but we just want to get a little bit from the horse's mouth as to what do you guys have planned going forward for Jupiter, because you guys already offer so much. You have a
You could
whole
do.
suite of products. I think more than 10 is what we counted from what you were talking about. But as always, crypto is a space of innovation, and you guys are leaders in that within the Solana ecosystem. So it'd be great to hear about what more you guys have on the pipeline, if you
I
can
mean,
talk about it, of course.
we'll need like a full separate podcast of an hour and a half for me to even go through like the short-term roadmap. We got so many things going on. But one thing that I'm particularly excited about that we just announced yesterday at the time of recording is a new permission to launch pad called DTF, which stands for Decentralized Token Formation and nothing else at
That's
all.
not what I usually heard it as, but sure.
The question is, are you down to do some decentralized token formation? And the idea is that basically, ICOs were a very popular kind of model of capital formation for a while. These initial coin offerings on chain, but they suffered from a lot of problems, quite honestly, right? Like it was oftentimes this kind of trust me, bro ethic of you'll just send money in and hey, maybe I'll launch a token in 6 months, maybe I'll launch it in 6 years, maybe you'll never see from me again. And it was very, kind of obfuscated of, okay, where are those funds actually going? What are the allocations going to be like? What are your prior disclosures and so forth? And so we really do believe in this vision of internet capital markets that the internet, in particular Solana, is where a lot of this capital formation is going to happen in the future. This is where businesses around the world will come for fundraising. This is how startups are going to get off the ground and so on. And we want to be a part of that progress while still cleaning up the space. So DTF is an ICO type launchpad with a few key features. The first one is it's fully transparent with on-chain vesting. That means 100% of the token supply, any user can see where it's going to go. And at a technological level, those tokens are locked on chain. So they can only go to those places once those durations are fulfilled. The second really great feature is that the fundraising can happen in multiple waves and phases. So you can whitelist your community first, you might whitelist users, you might whitelist other communities. And this gives a lot of control and kind of fine-tuned granularity to how and who these projects want to invite into the capital formation process. And finally, it comes with a bunch of disclosures, right? So we require any projects we're going on there to be vetted by us, which allows us to ensure that they have, adequate financial disclosures, any prior fundraising, the use of funds, and so on and so forth. So we hope that this is going to be a real contribution to the on-chain economy here by enabling more people to launch in a more reputable way that is more transparent and offers more alignment with investors.
Let me know when it's fully ready then, because I'll definitely be checking that out personally. And I'm a big fan of the internet capital markets as well. And now it comes with a few little but positive guardrails as well, which I think is always needed, with hand in hand with innovation, of course. So very exciting stuff. Now I think it's worth taking a little bit maybe of a step back, taking a look at the bigger picture, of course. We've got a great breakdown about Jupiter. I mean, I think it's been a great breakdown. To me, it just means I need to go and explore even more about what Jupiter's doing and learn even more about hands-on. But I think it's worth taking a step back, looking at Solana and getting it from you as well as to why Solana DeFi? Like, why would an investor be particularly interested, not in if they already are in DeFi, but why should they look towards the Solana ecosystem for this?
To me, it comes down fundamentally to a question of sustainability, right? How long will a particular ecosystem last? And we've seen lots of booms and lots of busts. I'm sure we could all name many chains that were heralded to be the future that never really got off the ground, right? And the key question for a sustainable ecosystem, in my opinion, is sustainable businesses. These are revenue generating businesses that have enough profit that can be reinvested for continued growth. And that's what you get with Solana DeFi. Three of the fastest growing startups in human history were in Solana DeFi, right? This is Pump, Photon, and Axiom. Many multi-billion-dollar companies are already built on Solana DeFi, and seemingly every month there's another unicorn being born. And the reason is there's a lot of real economic activity in Solana, and there's a lot of really high-quality product builders who are there to help kind of accelerate and facilitate that economic activity. So unlike other ecosystems where a lot of the activity is either quite honestly, inorganic. It's either, just product tokens being given out or private LP deals where you're kind of paying for TVL to come to a chain. We see actual organic activity on Solana. And I think that's really meaningful. That's why Solana is the revenue chain. And it's why Solana earns about as much as all other chains put together. I think it's about 48% of all network revenue earned in the last year was earned by Solana itself. And I think you're going to see a lot of really high quality DeFi projects come out of that soil. It's very fruitful to be in a place where there's so much real economic activity happening.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, I think part of that must also stem from a little bit of the technical setup, I guess, that Solana boasts
For sure.
compared to other smart contract platforms, right? That you guys have been given a bit of this fertile land to build on and the soil that you mentioned. So do you think compared to other L1s, it really is from a technical standpoint as well, or is it, you mentioned, other networks, particularly some of the older ones or the pioneers in smart contract platforms were very academically based, right? We're thinking
hmm
about Ethereum, maybe Cardano as well. But it'd be great to hear from you about what makes Solana such fertile ground from maybe a technical standpoint compared to other chains.
Absolutely. At a base level, one easy way to make technology good is to make it faster, cheaper, and more accessible, right? If you can do those three things, you're going to find users, you're going to find builders, because that's what both want, right? As a builder,
Yeah.
I want to go someplace where I can very quickly iterate and experiment, where it doesn't cost me thousands of dollars to, just try to get off the ground. And as a user, obviously, I want to use things that are fast and cheap and accessible. And so what you see on Solana is this unique combination of those three traits where gas fees, how much a transaction costs, are oftentimes less than, you know, 0.02 cents, typically, right? You see transaction speed where it can actually handle quite a bit of work. Right now Solana is doing more than 1,000 transactions per second, in contrast to, I think Ethereum does like 15 or something like this. So, it's an order of magnitude or two more than most other areas. In terms of accessibility, because the on-ramps are quite good, because the wallet experiences, particularly Jupyter Mobile, which is the best wallet, obviously, are so good, it's really easy for people to get onboarded and start to use the technology. And so that fundamental improvement at the network layer is what facilitates the ability for DeFi projects like Jupyter to be able to deliver like real value that feels in this almost Web 2 mold for a lot of users.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. So you're basically saying you boast all three of those things that make uh, builders and users want to come onto your, onto Solana, onto the chain that you are primarily hosted on. So makes a lot of sense. I mean, I'm an avid Solana user myself, so I'm not complaining with your response. And then I think the last question before we go into a little bit of expectations and predictions would be, I think we can tie a little bit of these, but it's tied to, do you think DeFi can go mainstream? And I think this touches on the fact of the rise of the super apps that we've seen. And then the kind of bolted on question to that would be, how do you see institutions using Jupyter or using DeFi? We've seen recently an integration with Anchorage Digital, and do you think that will help onboard the next trillion, essentially?
I think absolutely DeFi will continue to go and go mainstream, but I don't think it will be in the ways that a lot of us think of DeFi currently, right? And this is actually a little bit to Darius's point from earlier, but within crypto, there's oftentimes this argument of, oh, it's DeFi versus TradFi, and who's going to win and who's going to beat the other. And that's really not my view at all. I think it is DeFi plus TradFi, right? It is unified finance that is actually going to end up winning the day. DeFi technology is clearly better. TradFi liquidity is clearly better. And those two things coming together is how we get a better financial system for all. And so I would agree with Darius's point earlier that it is very likely that in the coming years, the way that people interact with DeFi is by not even knowing that they're interacting with DeFi. There's this metaphor that I sometimes use where there's people in crypto who think that DeFi is like the art piece in your living room. It's like the main thing you should talk about and look about and should kind of center the conversation. And there's other people, and I put myself in this group, where it's like DeFi is more like the rug that kind of ties the room together, right? It's what allows you, it's not the center of focus, it adds, but it's not the main thing, right? The main thing is everything else that you do in your living room, hanging out with friends, eating dinner, etc. And I think that that's a key frame to understand how DeFi is going to continue to grow. To your question around institutions, yes, partnerships with people like Anchorage, who've been great to us, shout out to those guys, is one really easy way to get the next $1 trillion of liquidity on chain. I think we're interested on kind of two levels, right? The first is, how do we get trillions of dollars of liquidity on chain? That's by getting more assets, better market microstructure, like I was talking about earlier, and so forth. But it's also about getting not just the big guys, but also the rest of the guys, right? So we need billions of people and we need trillions of dollars of liquidity. Once we have both of those, I think we can safely say that we've kind of gone mainstream. And the way that we get the billions of people is by building experiences that give them access to economic opportunities they don't have anywhere else, right? US treasuries are an easy example of this. US dollars are an easy example of this. Earning yield is an easy example of this. Trading in assets, FX currencies, like there's a bunch of different products that you can expect both Jupyter and others to build out in the relatively short term that will bring more people on chain.
Thanks a lot, Kash. I mean, I'm personally a big fan of rugs, so no problem with DeFi being a rug. I agree. I think it makes a room.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it's not the worst thing to be. But I agree with you. It shouldn't be the thing that you look and stare at, because it should be something that comes seamlessly that you don't even
Yeah.
notice.
I also,
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, but I also just love like how funny it is to say that like DeFi is a rug, you know? For those who are in crypto and know what rugs are, I think it's a very funny line.
True, true. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I'm a fan of the physical rugs, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Not what
Carpets, maybe
happens
we'll
to
say.
us. Carpets, exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Not what happens to us at the murky hours of a Sunday night. But with that said, I think we can move on to the last section. We're going
Mhm.
to talk a bit quickly about expectations, about predictions. But what in 5 years, what percent of users, of crypto or DeFi users, do you think will be onboarded through super apps specifically rather than using, more truncated experiences of DeFi?
I would assume it'd be approximating 100%. I think it's pretty close to everyone will come through there. DeFi and crypto in general had a really fruitful kind of decade of building the primitives that were necessary for kind of comprehensive super apps to come into play. But if you look at basically every other mature industry, you'll see that it is dominated by people that have these kind of either verticalized offerings or horizontally integrated offerings, where you're able to offer multiple points of value to the user through the kind of brand trust that you built up. Right. Amazon, Jeff Bezos and his investor letters talked about this in the early days that, hey, the more things that we have within Amazon, the more reasons there are for people to come and the more likely they are to come back. And I think super apps offer that same kind of experience. The more financial opportunities and assets I can offer to you in one place, the more likely you are to just go to that place to come in. The idea of this kind of like point solutions being the way that billions of people are going to access DeFi just does not seem super likely to me. When you look at, if you look at even the neobanks now or traditional banks like JP Morgan, they always have a full suite of services. And I think that's a lot of what the future of crypto is going to look like as well.
Yeah, completely agreed. I think one-stop shop type of things definitely help in bringing users and keeping users.
And then within TradFi, I see a lot of, economic behavior that looks a lot like DeFi, right? I see a lot of speculation. I see a lot of meme stocks. I see a lot of folks moving out further on the risk curve. So, as these two things kind of touch each other, I think they both kind of infuse cultural aspects in both directions. I think that there's three real key areas that we're already working on today. So the first one, of course, is around trading. So as more family offices, hedge funds, et cetera, want access to trading on-chain assets, Jupiter is the obvious choice for them to use. And that's why, our volumes are regularly above $1 billion a day, is that we have a lot of these kind of new participants wanting to use Jupiter products. Sometimes it's through partners like Anchorage. Other times it's just coming directly on chain. Other times it's using bots and utilizing our RFQ service, for example. So the trading is one key component that we're kind of seeing grow with institutions. The second is on the yield side. So with Jupiter Lend, which is the fastest growing protocol in Solana history, we had $1 billion in deposits in just 8 days. We're seeing a lot of demand from institutions for credit. So some of them want yield and others need credit to finance either trading activity that they're doing or other, and I do think that on-chain credit is going to be one of the biggest growth areas in this institutional.
I've learned a lot,
We let
certainly not about just Jupiter, about yourself, about how I need to make sure I see your podcast room next time as well. It's been a great time. Thanks a lot for being our second guest, our first external guest, actually,
I'm
here on
flattered.
Off the Block. So it's our pleasure.
great talking with
Thanks
you.
for
Bye,
bearing
Kash.
with us as well through all the technical, small niggles and issues. So we
That's fine.
really appreciate that. And, we have an exciting lineup of future guests coming on as well. So for those of you who are watching that, please stay tuned with Off the Block. We love to help you guys understand the crypto space block by block, protocol by protocol. And we had Jupiter on with us today. So say thanks to Kash. Please make sure to follow us, to subscribe, and to keep updated with our research as well. It's been Max. It's been a pleasure to be here. And thanks again to our co-host Darius and Kash. Hope you enjoyed. And if you have any last words, please let us know now.
I would say to anyone listening, go download the Jupiter mobile wallet. You can add funds with Google Pay and Apple Pay. It's the easiest way to get on chain. And yeah, I'll second what Matt said. Go follow 21 Shares and subscribe to the podcast. It's a great one. I'm very grateful that you guys had me on here and gave me a chance to talk.
Thanks a lot, Kash.